Welcome to Suburban Warrior, the podcast that will impact, inspire, and empower you to transform your mindset and become the badass warrior that you are. I'm your host and fellow warrior, Chrissy Pfeiffer, former clinician and corporate marketing exec turned multi-passionate entrepreneur, performance and life coach, and mom to 4 not-so-little warriors. Each week, I will bring you honest conversations with inspiring guests to share their stories of resilience, optimism, success, and simple yet effective strategies so that you transform your thoughts and change your behavior to get the results you want in your life. You will be empowered to take action, warrior up, and believe in you. Let's do this. What's up, warriors? Welcome back to another episode of the Suburban Warrior Podcast. I'm your host, Chrissy Pfeiffer, and I am back again this week with another amazing suburban warrior here to share her expertise and her story with you. And I am very excited about this week's guest because this is a topic that is pretty near and dear to my heart. We're talking all things functional nutrition. We're going to talk about autoimmune. We're going to talk about thyroid. And I think that this is something that we all need to learn more about. I feel like these are words that are thrown around a lot these days, especially for those women in midlife. And I think we all need to learn a little bit more about how we can fuel our bodies and do the best that we can so that we're living our healthiest, most joyful lives. So with that being said, I'm going to welcome Risa Groux to the podcast. She is a functional nutritionist and certified autoimmune coach in private practice in Newport Beach, California. She's always been passionate about nutrition and good health. Risa was so concerned about purity that she made her children's baby food from scratch. Today, she's passionate about cooking and creating healthy, nutritious food. She works with a wide array of clients from professional athletes, adults, and kids to the biggest loser from season 4. Risa works with issues like diabetes, autoimmune disease, cancer, digestion, thyroid, and hormone imbalances, to name a few. Risa firmly believes that the body can heal itself with the whole foods we obtain from the earth, and sees living proof of that in her office each day. She looks at root causes using functional nutrition guidelines, blood and stool tests, and knows that weight loss is a side effect of wellness. Welcome to the podcast, Risa.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I love that last line, that weight loss is a side effect of wellness. That's really impactful.
Yeah. I talk to people all the time because they'll come in my office and they want to lose 5 pounds or 50 pounds or whatever it is. And there's 5 reasons predominantly why we don't lose weight, right? One is thyroid dysregulation. The other is sex hormone dysregulation, cortisol, our stress hormone dysregulation, blood sugar deficiencies or dysregulation, insulin resistance or prediabetes, and did I say thyroid? Oh, and a buildup of toxins. Yeah. That's our 4th one. And toxins live in fat cells. So when we detox, we automatically lose weight. So that's a no-brainer. But I also say to people that when you've got a fire in the basement, when you've got something going on, you've got chronic inflammation, systemic inflammation of some kind, we have a major fire in the basement, right? Yeah. And it's like saying somebody on the 2nd floor going, hey, can you help me change the light bulb? You're like, what? I've got this raging fire. I got the fire department coming and you want me to change the light bulb? You want me to lose 3 pounds? Yeah. We're in an inflamed state. We're holding on to all of our resources because we don't know when we're going to need them. We don't start losing weight until we start putting out that fire.
Yeah, I love that because a lot of people think that losing weight just has to do with diet and exercise, right? What you put in and what you're outputting. But the problem is that especially, there's so many things, especially our hormones and all that. So that's amazing. What a way to start. So, okay, well, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and sort of why you got into functional nutrition?
Yeah. So, I was always interested in eating, in diet and health. I grew up in a house where my mom was perpetually on a diet, trying to lose 5 or 10 pounds her whole life. this is fattening, this is good, this is bad. I was very confused. That bad food seems kind of good to me. And my grandma was doing the same thing at her house. And, she was always going to every once a year, her and my aunt would go to the fat farm. And I later found out it was Canyon Ranch, but that's what we called it. So we had this horrible relationship with food. So what happened to me? Of course, I went, read every fad diet and went on every diet because I was always trying to lose that 3 pounds. And I never really had to lose a lot of weight, but I was always on a diet. I had this horrible relationship with food. And that diet word was always signifying to me of deprivation, starvation, restriction, miserable, right? You were either on your diet or off your diet. And I thought after years of that, this is crazy. We're supposed to eat. This is our fuel, right? Why are we restricting and depriving? I mean, it's just insanity to me. So I realized when I became a nutritionist and I went to back to school to study nutrition, I became a clinical nutritionist, and I kind of put everybody on the same diet when they first walked in my office. I would do some testing to see what you're allergic to, because that would give us some data. And then I realized some people are thriving and some people are not. And why? Why are these people not thriving? And it really hit me. It took me a while to realize this, but I was like, everybody does not eat. We shouldn't be eating the same way. And those food allergy tests that I was doing gave us great information, but they were really just a side effect of something bigger, which was leaky gut. We weren't born with a million food allergies, right? We had these food sensitivities because we had these gaping holes in our intestinal linings, because we only have one layer of epithelial cells on our intestinal lining, where the outside skin has 7. And so we have these holes, and these things go through it, like undigested proteins, perhaps to eggs or to sorghum or to corn. And next thing you know, you're having an antibody production because your body goes, who are you? You're the enemy. You're coming in through the back door. And our innate defense mechanism creates antibodies, which create inflammation. But these antibodies, after producing them for so long, they need to find a place to park. So they're going to find a gland, a tissue, or an organ in which to park themselves. And that's how we get autoimmune disease. That's a major root cause of autoimmunity. But what I realized was I was looking at the side effect. I wasn't looking at the root cause, right?
Yeah.
And the root cause was the leaky gut. And then I realized that everybody should be eating according to their current health status. So if you have autoimmune disease, you should be eating one way. If you have diabetes, you should be eating a different way. And when that new diet book comes out and your sister or your neighbor or your coworker loses 40 pounds and you lose nothing, it's because it's not a one size fits all, right?
Right.
We know that story, right?
Oh, totally.
Right.
I mean, you go in like a detox diet or whatever with like 10 of your friends, and some people lose like 5 pounds. Some people drop 10 pounds, and some people say the same. And you're like, oh my God, what's happening?
And that's why, because gut microbiomes are different, because our inflammation is different. We might have, an active virus. We might have parasites. We might have H. pylori. We might have mold. And, we've got a fire in the basement. We're holding on to our resources. So it's very different for every individual.
Yeah. Yeah. I have personally gone through all of the testing with the parasites and the viruses and the molds and the this and the that. And it is until you actually go to someone who knows functional nutrition or a functional medicine doctor and can actually test your body for all of these things. It's amazing. It's like a whole nother world opens up of, oh, this is how I can heal, or this is what's wrong with me. And it's something that I think a lot of people don't realize. Like, you could have these things that have been a part of you for 10, 20 years, and they've just never been treated.
Exactly. Yeah. And in my case, I went down that road with the dieting thing, and then I got married and I became pregnant immediately. We barely tried, and I had a great, healthy pregnancy. Everything was great. And then when we tried for our second, I couldn't get pregnant. And if I did, I couldn't hold it. And it was super frustrating. I could not understand the two main goals of living organisms is to survive and procreate. Why was I procreating? So I went down that road and I went tried to figure this out. I realized I had MTHFR, this common gene mutation I tested before. And I took some regular B vitamins, and then, I was pretty good to go. But before that, I had gone to the fertility specialist, and he hands me a script, and I'm like, "What's this for?" And he goes, "Well, your thyroid's not really functioning very well." I'm like, "Why do I have an underachieving thyroid?" He goes, "Just take it." And I go, "How long do I take it for?" And he said, "Every day." And I go, "No, but for how long?" And he said, "For the rest of your life."
Yeah.
That's when I walked out that day and I went, "Why is my body not producing a hormone that I was born to produce? And why is my doctor not asking why it's not producing? He's just
Yeah.
giving the synthetic to make up for this hormone." And that's really what started me on my trail. And then it got expedited after I did have a healthy pregnancy for my second. And then I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. And then I was like, "All right, this is enough already. Let's find out, why is this happening? What are the root causes?" I could not find at that time a list of why I got Hashimoto's. How do I get rid of it? Nobody was talking about that. They were just managing it with medication. So I created my own list. I put it in my book, Food Frame. It took me years to do. I had pretty much everything on that list of root causes for autoimmunity. I addressed them all, and I was able to reverse my Hashimoto's. It took a long time, but I did it.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of frustration. I had a lot of tears. I spent a ton of money and a ton of time, like everybody else does, going down this road. But I was just not going to take it. I was going to reverse this. I was going to manage this and find out why. So
Yeah. Well, and that is one thing for people to understand, right? Like, this is not a quick fix. Anytime you're doing something holistically, or through functional medicine or functional nutrition, it does take time. But to your point, had you taken the synthetic thyroid, then you would be on that for the rest of your life, and that's a really long time. So let's talk a little bit about thyroid health, because I do think, to your point, a lot of women are told that their thyroid isn't functioning correctly, and the solution to that is to give them synthetic hormone. So let's talk a little bit about thyroid health and Hashimoto's. And is there a difference between Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism or hypothyroidism? Like, what really is Hashimoto's?
Yeah, so Hashimoto's is when we have antibodies that are attacking the thyroid gland, mistakenly think that it's the enemy. It's a foreign invader, and we need to attack it. And if you do this and your antibodies remain high, you'll eventually start taking out your thyroid gland. And you've got a higher chance for getting thyroid cancer later down the road. So, and that means that you are in hypo, meaning that you're not producing enough. What happens is, it starts in the pituitary, which is the size and shape of a pea in our brain, and that pituitary gets the ball rolling. It creates what's called TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. It goes through the liver. That's why we detox, and we create T4. And T4s are inactive thyroid hormone. It's inactive. That's what Synthroid is. Synthroid is a synthetic T4.
Yeah.
It's synthetic. Now, T4 is 93% of the equation. That T4 needs to convert into T3. That's only 7% of the equation. So that conversion process is critical. I look at labs all day, and I can tell you that most people are not converters. If I find one, it's unusual and I get excited, but most people are not. And what I usually say about thyroid is, when your kids were little and you took them to the science museum, and you're on the second floor and you drop a ball down this track and it goes down, and it, maybe rings through some bells, and then it goes through domino set, and then it might, go through a tunnel, or, a few minutes later it lands in the cup. It's fascinating. It goes through all these functions to land. That's what your thyroid is. It's got to go through all these functions in order to create an active thyroid hormone. So in our allopathic conventional medicine paradigm that we have here, we look at the TSH. We want to know, how many balls are we dropping? TSH tells us, if we're supposed to, that if we don't get enough balls in the cup, then we're supposed to drop more balls. But I can tell you, it doesn't always happen. So they wait until you're dropping an obscene amount of balls, because it's alerting the body that something's off. We're not getting it into the cup.
Yeah.
And then then we don't even look to see if it's getting through the tunnel and the domino set and ringing the bells, right? We just care about the end result. We don't even look at the end result in most conventional labs. So what I do in functional nutrition is I look at all 9 markers of the thyroid. I'm looking at the free and the total, what's bound, what's unbound. And then I'm looking at, are you reversing? Is your stress, your cortisol production, or your inflammation pulling from your reserves, right? Pulling from your T3, or are your sex hormones competing for that site on T3 uptake? And if we're imbalanced, it's for sure going to affect your thyroid. And then we're always looking at antibodies. Are you creating antibodies to your thyroid? Are you in the state of attack? So we need to have a thorough look. And that's where I'm really kind of a freak about data. I order extensive lab tests so that I know that I don't have to guess. I leave that to conventional medicine.
So for those that are listening that might have a thyroid dysfunction or Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism, and they were put on a synthetic hormone, are they on that for the rest of their life, or are there ways to reverse it? Because once your body's recognizing this synthetic, will it ever start producing again?
Well, it's a complicated answer to that, because if you can find the root cause, it's possible you don't have to be on that medication for the rest of your life. But it's also depends how you are on that medication, and it depends what your situation is. So I just described a hypothyroid, meaning an underachieving thyroid. But if you have a hyperthyroid, meaning that you're producing a ton of T4, right? Your inactive thyroid hormone, you're very efficient at conversion, and your levels are too high. That would be you cannot gain weight. You're easy to lose weight. You've got a lot of maybe heart palpitations, a lot of energy. You can't sleep that much. You are in hyper state. You're hyper metabolizing, right? Then hyper often will crash and go hypo. So not everybody, but some people do. I was working with a woman who was in a state of autoimmunity called Graves' disease, where she was attacking her thyroid. But in her case, instead of being hypo, not enough thyroid hormone, she was making too much. So she needed to have some medication to level that off. And I'm always looking at root causes. So if we can find the root cause, like I did in my situation, I was able to stabilize my thyroid and not create antibodies anymore. But I still take bioidentical medication to manage it. Now, can I ever get off of that? Maybe. It's something I'm working on, but I think everybody is an individual. It depends how much stress you have in your life. It depends how much toxicity you have in your life. It just depends. It depends how much gluten you're eating. It depends on your root causes.
Yeah. Okay. So when you say bioidentical, like a bioidentical thyroid hormone.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So I know you said basically talking about like trying to find the root cause. So something like that is only done through extensive testing, correct?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, some of the root causes of autoimmune, a huge factor, a third of it is genetics, right? So you have a higher probability if your immediate family member has it, or lots of them. In my case, I think all my family members had Hashimoto's, both my grandmothers, both my parents, my dad's identical twin brother, but nobody was ever diagnosed with it.
Right.
Nobody, I never heard of Hashimoto's until it was diagnosed to me. And then I'm like, you guys, I think you all have it.
Right.
Like, yeah, everybody's got it.
Exactly.
Right? And then another big portion is leaky gut. So we talked about that a bit, and leaky gut is huge. So that could take a while to fix. Then there are certain parasites can cause autoimmunity, different pathogens. If you have high levels of pathogens, it can cause rheumatoid arthritis, it can cause colitis, it can cause lots of different things. So though it depends on what your overgrowth looks like. Then there is low vitamin D. Really low chronic vitamin D makes you more susceptible to autoimmunity. MTHFR gene that we talked about, that B vitamin is essential. That methylation pathway is critical for not getting autoimmunity. And then there's things like viruses. So an active Epstein-Barr virus or cytomegalovirus could do it. And then heavy metals. I had, there wasn't a day I didn't eat tuna fish salad. I mean, it just, I grew up on tuna. Like that's what we ate.
Right.
So, and then the 80s came and we started eating ahi. I was like, oh, tuna by day and ahi by night. So I was like, Oh, and I love swordfish too, which is super high in mercury. So I was
Right.
when I tested, I was like off the chart, like literally it was off the page. So
Yeah.
that took me almost a year to chelate that out of my system. So there's all these root causes. And then I was able to move the needle a lot, but I changed my diet. I was vegan. I changed it to paleo. I was really conscious about I didn't eat fish for a year while I was chelating. And then I did my blood work. I was like 99% compliant. I was amazing. I was taking 50,000 supplements. I was doing everything I was, researched and told to do and all that. I redid my labs 3 months later and it moved a hair. I was like in tears.
That's the worst. That's the
Right.
worst.
How can this possibly be? So when I realized that my cholesterol was so high, and yes, I have genetics for high cholesterol, but it was really high. I did a Boston Heart Lab, and I showed really high potential for risk for heart cardiovascular disease. I knew that teeth and heart were related, so I ordered myself my stool test that I use every day now for everybody. But that was the first time I did it. And I brought it to a biological dentist who was amazing. And she took one look at it and she said, "Oh, that's a salivary bacteria." And 2 seconds later, I had the x ray and they found it. 20
Wow.
years prior to that day, I had, well, not that day, but that year, I had my wisdom teeth extracted. And the surgeon left a root in there. And that root developed an abscess around it. And of course, while they were in there, they left a piece of metal in there too. But I had no symptoms. I
Yeah.
didn't feel sensitivity. You couldn't see it. There was absolutely zero reason I would think that I had something in my mouth. And I had the jaw surgery, I had everything removed. I cleaned everything out with ozone, which is really good for bacteria. And next thing you know, my lab started to move.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts. So wait a second. So I just want to, so you figured it out from the stool test, but then you went to a dentist.
Yeah, biological dentist because I
Bio.
knew connection to heart health and teeth, dental health. And I am like, my grandfather was a dentist. I flossed every day. I brushed my teeth with clean teeth toothpaste. I mean, I was obsessed with my teeth. I still am.
Yeah. It's
But I
great.
was like, how could this be? So
Yeah.
now, it's funny. I had a patient who was a dentist who came to see me years ago. And I told him about ozone, and now he's completely changed his practice. I go to see him now as my dentist, which is crazy. And he cleans my teeth with ozone, which is really important. I think that's where we're going. But dental health is a huge contributor. So if your white blood cells are chronically high, something's going on, and people don't often connect it with dental health. So
Yeah.
perfect example of that, right?
And it's also, yes, absolutely. And it's also a perfect example of just how everything is so interconnected in our bodies, right?
Yeah.
And our medical system is set up with like all these specialists that we go to. And it's great. But the more you realize that like these specialists are only focusing on obviously that one specialty, and that our body doesn't function that way. Our body functions as a whole, as this like beautiful piece of magical machinery that one little part affects the other. And I think we're moving into that direction of understanding the wholeness of our bodies, but our Western medicine system is not set up for that. So I think it's just important to empower the patient and empower ourselves to be our own advocates and to maybe seek a little extra help when we need it. So let's talk about leaky gut, because we've talked about that a couple times. Again, more and more we know that the gut microbiome is so important. We know the gut brain connection. It's so related to what we put in our body. But like, what exactly is leaky gut and how can we heal it?
So leaky gut is when we have holes in our intestinal lining. So as I mentioned, we only have one layer of epithelial cells. Above that, we have villi. And then we have a mucosal lining. And the mucosal lining, its intent really is to create and house bacteria that are colonized by the foods we eat, right? So like Akkermansia muciniphila, for example, that's a really good protective bacteria. That's a good guy, right? It's a good guy. And I test everybody for it. A lot of people don't even have any of it, let alone, a little bit. And when we eat our fibrous foods, or in that case, it's pomegranates or cranberries, not the sugar kind, but the tart cranberries and all those things, those help colonize it. right? So if you have it in there, it helps repopulate it. And we are designed with this ecosystem to survive, right? And to thrive and to
Totally.
develop. It's crazy. It
is.
How intricate the body is and how resilient it is amazing to me. And so when we kill off that bacteria, we don't have that ecosystem. It's all being affected. So it's really critical to make sure your mucosal lining is healthy, that your intestinal lining is strong and not have holes in it. So when we have the integrity of our intestinal lining, there are things that don't go through the intestinal lining and come in through the back door and cause this inflammation and antibodies. And what are the reasons? How can we get leaky gut? It's super easy, right? Stress is a huge one. And we have so much stress. Stress really does a lot of damage to the intestinal lining. Organ malfunctions, toxins. Toxins are just enormously huge. Our FDA has approved 86,000 chemicals for us to use, well over 3,000 of which we can eat. And they're approved about 2,000 to 6,000 a year. And some of them, a lot of them are not even tested. These are things we're breathing, we're putting on our skin. Candles are like so toxic. I mean, all these cleaning agents that we use, deodorant, shampoo. I mean, I can go on and on and on. These are toxins that our liver has to figure out. And we have to get them out of the body. But if we're busy dealing with a fire in the basement, then we're just going to park them in fat cells and fat tissues because we don't have time. So our body can only do so much. So toxins and then food particles. So, it could be, and pathogens. These are things that can eventually break down gluten, bread, sugar, dairy, and alcohol are inflammatory foods that are going to poke holes, little fissures that are called tight junctions. And once you have leaky gut, and it's a smorgasbord of what can happen to you. Right? So you're going to have digestive issues or not. You could be totally fine, not have digestive issues. But you're susceptible to all these other things. So leaky gut is it's so imperative. And there's so much philosophy about leaky gut, leaky brain, leaky gut, leaky heart. Leaky gut, affects our mental health, our depression, anxiety. It affects everything. It really affects everything. Our RNA, DNA, all these things everything that we do, our mood, our sleep, our skin. It's just leaky gut is, the way I tell people when I work with them is there's two foundational issues that I focus on. Because at the end of the day, I've been doing this for so many decades. This is what either optimizes your health or hinders your health. And you have to work on these every day, pretty much for the rest of your life. One is systemic inflammation, which is the driver of disease. We've talked about the fire in the basement. So systemic inflammation, we know during COVID, the people who were in third stage inflammation were the people that was going into the respiratory tract and they were dying.
Yeah.
Right? It's crazy, that inflammation. And the other one is gut health. So we're talking a lot about that. Gut health is imperative. It's just, it's 75 to 85% of our immune system is produced in our gut. 90% of our serotonin, our happy hormone, is produced in our gut. I could sit here for an hour and tell you everything that has to do with the gut, but suffice it to say that if we're deficient in something, if something's off, we're going to start taking spokes out of that wheel. And so many people come to see me, they've already taken so many spokes out. And then they slap on some medication and we're going to try and put some Band-Aids on it. It's like being in a boat. Imagine you're in a canoe or a kayak or something, and there's a hole in the back of the boat. So you run to the back of the boat and you cover it up. But once you cover it up with some medication, 2 more holes are popping up at the front. So you're running up to the front, trying not to tip over and trying to cover those holes. And then 3 more pop up in the back of the boat. And this is what you're doing.
Yeah. It's so frustrating. And I think a lot of people feel that a lot, they feel like, oh, okay, I was diagnosed with this. And then, we figured it out, but now I have this and now I have this. And it's like, this never ending sort of health journey that people are on. So how does someone begin to start the journey to heal their gut?
So there's a lot of things you can do. First, what I do a stool test because I want to know what the baseline is. I'm not really good at playing darts with the lights off and I cannot see the target. So I kind of want to know where we're going.
Yeah.
So do we have an overgrowth of H. pylori? Do we have too many bad guys? Do we have not enough good guys? Do we have Inflammation? Do we have, what's driving? Are we making our own digestive enzymes? Are we, where's our immune system or our gut? I mean, I can go on and on. So I test that to find out what I'm trying to fix. And then once we do that, there's lots of natural things that you can do to heal a leaky gut. Collagen, I'm a huge fan of collagen. I have collagen myself at least once a day. I use my collagen protein every day for shakes, collagen bars, all kinds of collagen I use all the time. Collagen is comprised of 3 major amino acids, and those amino acids are extremely helpful in patching up those holes in the leaky gut. L-glutamine specifically is really good. I have a product called Gut Reboot, which has L-glutamine, slippery elm, marshmallow root, zinc carnosine, aloe, all these wonderful things that help a leaky gut. So I use that. I would say it's a 90-day protocol for most, but I use my Gut Reboot every time I have a shake, because why wouldn't I want to heal my gut? I'm, breathing in things, and I travel, and I'm in restaurants, and I'm constantly being, in contact with toxins. And then bone broth. Bone broth, if it's cooked long enough, so fowl is 24 hours and beef is 48 hours. It brings out the amino acids in those bones, just like collagen. It's got those amino acids that help with a leaky gut. So I snack on bone broth quite often. I'll drink it like tea in the afternoons, put a little sea salt in there, and I'm good to go. And fiber is extremely helpful for creating those good guys in the mucosal lining. It's got all the benefits, the minerals and the vitamins. And in addition, what we remove is the processed foods, the sugar, the gluten for sure, the dairy, the alcohol, and all the toxins. We clean up the shampoos and the deodorants and the cleaning supplies and the candles and all that stuff. Makeup, nail polish. I mean, it's endless, right?
Yeah, it is endless. It's endless. Yeah. It's everywhere.
The average American female comes in contact with over 200 toxins just before she's left the bathroom each morning.
Yeah.
Let alone what we're injecting into the body, or what we're, there's all these nail things that you can do. And it's just crazy. It's crazy how we just put chemicals in and on our body all the time.
Yeah.
So if you take those offenders out and you put in the repairs, you can get there. Now, I've worked with a lot of people who have severe leaky gut. They can't eat anything. They're sick all the time. Their digestion does not function. And it takes a while, and I have a protocol, and I'm killing the bad guys, and I'm healing the good guy, promoting the good guys. And it can take some time, and every body is different. Yeah. So I would love to have an answer when people ask me all the time, how long is this going to take me? I don't know. The younger you are, the better off you are. But are you living in a moldy house, and are you still using, all these things? And so it's hard to say. I would say, within a year, you should be pretty good to go. I mean, on the worst case scenario, it wouldn't take really a year, but everybody's different. So it depends.
Okay. So tell us about your book, because I know you wrote a book. Tell us about that.
So my book is called Food Frame. Diet is a 4-letter word is the subtitle, because diet now has all this connotation to deprivation and starvation. So diet is actually a word that means what we eat, but it doesn't have that meaning anymore. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not a diet society. It is, we're eating more for survival and less for sport.
Yeah.
And what I do is I break down the 6 different diet types that I typically recommend in my office with people I work with. We start off with my detox, which is awesome. I do that with pretty much everybody I work with. It's 2 weeks, and it's a collagen detox, and you're eating food. It's not starvation, and people thrive on that. Not only do they lose weight, it's not a weight loss program, but they lose weight, but we're really cleaning out the liver. We are optimizing the organs, the blood, all that stuff, and people feel good. So a lot of their symptoms go by the wayside after 2 weeks. And then after that, there's 6 different diet types I recommend hopping on. So if you're autoimmune, let's say, I'm going to recommend the AIP protocol or the low lectin, or maybe after the AIP, then go low lectin. Then if you've got diabetes, I'm going to recommend potentially keto, but not everybody can do keto. If you don't have a gallbladder, you are not a candidate for keto. If you can't digest your fats, you're not a candidate for keto. So keto would be one that I may recommend, or paleo. And then I talk about low FODMAP, and low FODMAP is something I recommend for IBS or SIBO. A lot of people have SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and nobody even gets diagnosed. It's crazy frustrating and it's very uncomfortable. And I treat a lot of SIBO in my office. So I recommend low FODMAP. Again, it's a elimination diet, so it's a 30 to 90-day protocol. And then I just give very detailed notes on what to eat, what not to eat, who's this best suited for, who's not best suited for it. And there's a lot of information and stories along the way as well.
Well, that sounds amazing. Because I even just the to start out on the 2-week detox and start feeling really great, because I think it is, even if you eat healthy, I think we all need that reminder of what foods do what for us. And, even like you mentioned, lectins, for example. I mean, it wasn't really till recently that I learned that some people really shouldn't be eating lectins. And I love tomatoes, but every time I cut the tomato, I'm like, should I be eating this? Because I don't know. I don't know if I'm one of those people that should or shouldn't be eating it, but I have recently read about lectins. So I think it's really fascinating to start just learning what works for you and what works for your body.
Exactly.
So I'm really excited to check out the book and check out the first part, especially the 2-week detox. Well, tell my listeners where they can find you and find more information about you.
Yeah, I have my course, Achieving Optimal Thyroid Health, on my website. I also have a bunch of recipes. I do it by diet type and by meal, so it's very easy for people. And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Everything's on Risa Groux Nutrition. It's RISA. Groux is GROUX Nutrition. And everything's there. I work with everybody all over the country and via Zoom, so I can help everybody. And I also have my quiz on my website to see what diet type is best for you. So that's always helpful. It's only 12 questions and it's really, really helpful.
Yeah.
I love watching people heal. I feel very fortunate. I am in a position to watch people heal every single day, and it's the coolest job ever.
That is amazing. And I love that you've been doing it for so long, because I feel like it is something that has become more and more part of the language that we speak, and part of the awareness of, trying to stay away from processed foods and really eating whole foods. And you've really been doing this for a long time. So we will certainly link your website and Instagram and everywhere to find you in our show notes. Tell us, you have a special for our listeners.
Yeah. So on my detox, as I mentioned, 2-week, 14-day program, collagen shakes, animal protein, vegetables, good fats, yams and sweet potatoes. It's not starvation. You'll feel amazing. I am offering your listeners a 10% discount on that with the code SW10. So 10% off that. And that'll run for 90 days after it drops.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. That's amazing.
Happy to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Risa. I feel like I learned so much. And, this is a subject that I really feel like I could just talk forever about, because it's just so intricate and there's so much to it. But I think the key is to start somewhere. And if you're not feeling well, then don't take no for an answer. Or if it doesn't feel right, find another practitioner, find someone who can help you. Look at your diet. Look at people like Risa who are implementing the more deeper dive tests, because I really think that that's ultimately what we all need to really see what's going on with us.
Yeah. If something's off, something's off.
Exactly.
You feel like something's off, it's off.
Yes. It is not all in your head. Something's off.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, Risa. Guys, be sure to check out Risa Groux Nutrition. And you can find me on Instagram at Suburban Warrior, TikTok, and YouTube. Give us a comment. Let us know what you think of the episode. And I'll be back next week with another Suburban Warrior here to share her story with you. Talk to you soon.